Alright, so lesson 1.4, air temperatures around the world. Let's see what we're going to do today. We are going to start by investigating air temperatures at different locations. So far we know that the energy from the sun is transferred to the surface of the earth, and that some of the energy is transferred to the air above the surface, and some of it is transferred to the surface. So let's continue to investigate and explore how we can look at that transfer of energy. So today we are going to investigate our new question, which is why do different locations on Earth have different air temperatures? So as many of you already know or are already thinking about, if you've traveled or if you've been to other places, you know that temperatures can be different in different places. So why do different locations have different air temperatures? So we're going to be looking at both of these maps. We're going to look at one of them at a time. We're going to be stopping, answering some questions, and then we are going to be doing some research and investigating and answering questions in our notebook later. So you're going to eventually be looking at a page like this in your notebook and answering some of these questions. So I just want you to start thinking as we go through this lesson, what information does this map show us? And then how do the maps go together to help provide evidence about the questions that we are asking, which is why do different locations have different air temperatures? So let's look at this first map. This map shows us that different locations have different temperatures, and we know that because we can look at both the scale at the bottom in degrees Celsius, showing that temperatures can go all the way from -50 up to 30 degrees Celsius. And then when we look at these colors in this range, we see the same thing on our map above. So the bar at the bottom shows the temperature reading, and then the colors above, they correspond and help us read and represent that. The red represents warmer temperatures, and the blue represents cooler temperatures. The locations closest to the equator are warmer, and the locations furthest away from the equator are colder. So if we look at this, we can see that the warmest temperatures are our red and our dark red zones. So we know that the equator would be right here through the middle of our map. And then our colder zones are at the top and the bottom because those are our darker colors of blue. So on this map, we have a little bit of a different image. We can see that equator is drawn on the map. We have another bar at the bottom to help us read the map and tell us what's happening in it. And we can use this to identify what's happening on our map. So our areas with the tannish colors show that they get the most energy from the sun, and then our white ones are the least energy from the sun. So this shows the amount of energy that each of these different places is getting, and we can see and we can kind of evaluate what we're looking at in this map. So how does this information from both these maps give us evidence about why locations have different air temperatures? Take some time to answer this question now. Next, we're going to talk about the latitude lines that are on this. So how did we see that equator? How do we know that that's there? So as we look at these latitude lines, we skipped the word latitude, the vocabulary word. The distance of a place north or south of the Earth's equator. So latitude is that distance that we're looking at. So again, we can see that blue line points to the equator, and then we have our latitude lines, which are these smaller dotted lines. They are, just like when we talked about in our last unit with the orbit lines, these are imaginary lines, so we wouldn't see them anywhere in real life, we just see them on a map. The equator line represents 0 degrees latitude, and then everything above and below that is going to have a different number attached to it to help us read how the map works. So we can notice that the locations that are closer to the equator have higher energy and higher air temperatures. So if you think back to those first two maps we looked at, you would see that there's higher air temperatures as well as higher energy levels. So a few places on the map that don't really follow our pattern. Remember, patterns are things that we see that happen frequently or over and over again, that don't follow our general pattern. And they are circled here, and we can we're going to investigate those further coming up but I just wanted to point those out for you today, that we have these places that don't match our pattern. But why do you think these places are colder than the areas around them at the same latitudes? So take a moment, think about this question, and answer it now. So now you're going to use your sorting tool to begin. My thing keeps skipping around. I'm sorry about that. We can see that the mountains are in these areas with these circles. So the Rocky Mountains, the Andes Mountains, and the Himalayas. And that is going to give us some information about what's happening in those areas, which is why the temperatures would be different or be represented differently. You're going to be using the sorting tool in just a moment to identify different places on the map and to look at these areas that use energy and these areas of temperatures here. Remember that our key concept says the closer a location is to the equator, the more energy it receives from the sun. Therefore, a location's air temperature is affected by its distance from the equator.